The paintwork, like most modern cars, is water-based, which is why it does not resist the appearance of minor damage. The situation is aggravated by the absence of mudguards, which were not regularly installed on the car. The manufacturer limited itself to applying a thin strip of anti-gravel coating on the thresholds. If the owner is too lazy to install a protective accessory immediately after purchase, the lower part of the body will have a large number of chips and other damage. But the quality of body iron and its corrosion resistance so far does not raise any special questions. But there are still a couple of vulnerabilities on the body of the Chevrolet Aveo T300. When inspecting a car, special attention should be paid to thresholds, chips and the joint with the wing rust, the edge of the windshield. When replacing the glass, the paintwork is damaged and the frame begins to rot, the junction of the rear bumper with the wing, there may be significant foci of corrosion, the opening and the trunk lid. When inspecting the car from below, pay attention to the niche of the lower part of the wing. The fact that dirt constantly accumulates here, which over time leads to the appearance of significant pocket of corrosion. For machines operated in a metropolis, due to the impact of reagents, the fastening of heat shield on the exhaust line quickly rots, a roar appears. Eliminating the disease is quite expensive, since the part is sold complete with pipe selection. To save money, the owner simply removed the protection. It is also worth looking into the spare wheel niche. If the car often drove along killed roads, through cracks may be present in the lower parts. Another weak point is the spare wheel mounting in the niche. Due to the fact that it does not press the wheel tightly enough against the pallet, the paint is rubbed at the point of contact. For cars in a sedan body, the trunk lid is also considered a problem, in which weak hinges are used to hang out on bumps, which leads to rapid wear of the rubber seal and the paintwork of the opening. There is a complaint about the wear resistance of the windshield and the protective plastic of the front optics, overriding. You can also note the low brightness of the light beam from the standard headlights. Since the car has a small ground clearance, there is a high probability of damage to the bumper skid, so in winter many owners simply remove it. The drainage holes of the car can also cause a lot of problems. If they are not cleaned periodically, water will accumulate in the doors, thresholds, and begin to penetrate into the interior. The disadvantages include the low weight of the door, which makes it difficult to close it. To solve the problem, it is recommended to weight the door with soundproofing. In the CIS countries, the Chevrolet Aveo T300 was officially sold only with gasoline atmospheric internal combustion engine 1.2 A12XEL 70 and 86 horsepower, 1.4 F14D4 100 horsepower, 1.6 F16D4 115 horsepower. Diesel Aveos with a 75 horsepower 1.3-liter engine LSF and LDV are also found on the European market, and versions with a 1.4 turbo engine 1.40 horsepower are available in the USA. Gasoline engines have a good margin of safety and bother only in small things. So, for example, owners of cars with a stock A12XEL engine AKZ12XE must often encounter electrical malfunctions. The ECU unit is buggy, a small resource of gasket, oil seals, a thermostat and an oil pump. It is fraught with accelerated wear of the internal combustion engine. With regular use of cheap gasoline, twin-port dampers and exhaust manifolds quickly acquire soot. The latter, with significant contamination, can become covered with cracks. Also, do not save on maintenance, since the quality of the oil greatly affects the life of the hydraulic lifters and the timing chain. It stretches after 100,000 km. Motors 1.4 F14D4 A14XER like to annoy their owners with noise, whistling and clicking, but the presence of extraneous sounds here is not a breakdown, a feature of the engine. As for the weak points, it is worth highlighting the unsuccessful crankcase ventilation system and heat exchanger, which are prone to lubricant leaks. The valve cover and pressure sensor do not differ in special tightness. You can also note the short resource of the cooling system fan. Failure is fraught with overheating of the engine and the rather weak control unit. When overheated, solder cracks appear. The owners are also not happy with the service life of the thermostat, expansion tank, pump, intake manifold, ignition module and candles. The twin-port system installed in the intake manifold often fails, in the event of a malfunction, the diesel engine. But the piston here is strong, the resource significantly exceeds the declared 250,000 km. However, because the pistons are a little prone to cocking, it is better not to save on fuel quality. In addition, this motor does not like water procedures very much. After moisture gets on the connectors and contacts, a large number of electrical glitches appear. The most common failure of the most popular engine in the F16D4 line was the failure of the solenoid valves of the phase regulator, after which the internal combustion engine began to diesel. Often, there are failures in the operation of the ignition module, due to the fact that the coils are built into a single ramp. It is expensive, the electronic throttle and the computer. On older specimens, the heat exchanger requires special attention, since if the tightness is lost, the oil enters the antifreeze and pollutes the cooling system. The gaskets of the valve cover and the thermostat do not differ in tightness, in which the heating elements often fail or the damper turns sour. Weaknesses can also be attributed to the membrane of the crankcase ventilation system. The right support needs to be replaced every 60–80,000 kilometers, and the pump serves 80–100,000 kilometers. The air conditioner pipes leading to the stove fray also leave a little. Since this engine does not have hydraulic compensators, every 70–100,000 kilometers it is necessary to adjust the thermal clearances of the valves. The timing drive here is a belt drive with a prescribed replacement interval of 150,000 kilometers. However, it is not worth pulling to the last with a replacement, as this is fraught with a broken belt and the meeting of valves with pistons. Recommended interval is 100–120,000 kilometers. Among the operational shortcomings, the owners note increased fuel consumption, up to 12 liters per 100 when driving in the city. The list of gearboxes available for the Chevrolet Aveo T300 includes a 5-speed manual of the D16 series and a 6-speed automatic 6T30/6T40. A manual gearbox most often bothers with oil leaks through the drive seals. The gear selection mechanism, wears out, is not too successful here, which moreover is not famous for its high definition of work. If the gearbox has not been serviced, an oil change is required every 60–80,000 kilometers. After 100,000 kilometers of run, the box starts to make a little noise, and by 200,000 kilometers, it may be necessary to replace the synchronizers, bearings, and differential. The clutch kit, with careful operation, is able to last 160–200,000 kilometers, but the release bearing is often give up after the first 100,000. The 6T30/6T40 automatic transmission has a reputation for being rather capricious and not very reliable. The most vulnerable point is the solenoids and their control unit, located in the pan, which can make themselves felt closer to 100,000 kilometers. Incorrect operation of the block and solenoids leads to the combustion of clutch packs and the appearance of jerks during switching. The retaining rings of the brake drums of higher gears also wear out quickly, starting from the third. This breakdown is unpleasant because the fragments of the rings get into the oil and destroy the meshing of the planetary gear's teeth and other parts, after which the box will have to be changed. The cooling system is not very successful either. Under loads, the probability of overheating of the gearbox is high. To solve the problem, it is recommended to install an additional radiator. If you follow the prescribed service intervals, the box will last about 250,000 kilometers. Untimely maintenance of the transmission leads to intense contamination of the valve body and wear of the bushing, after which vibrations appear. Reliability of the suspension, steering and brakes. Chevrolet Aveo T300. The Chevrolet Aveo T300 has a simple suspension design with McPherson strut in front and a rear beam. The standard running model is too rigid, but it does not provide a good handling. Another significant disadvantage is the low ground clearance, 115 mm, which decreases over the years. In order to somehow remedy the situation, the owners resort to upgrading the chassis by installing attachments, new shock absorbers, levers, and springs. Do not please the suspension elements and their reliability. Most often, stabilizer struts resource 20–40,000 kilometers, and silent blocks of the beam, which often need to be replaced after 60,000 kilometers of run, need to be replaced. They delaminate and tear. The rear shock absorbers also have a modest resource. They begin to flow closer to 70,000 kilometers, and the stock can also rust. Wheel bearings and ball bearings run an average of 70–90,000 kilometers. For a short time, the rubber lower bushings of the shock absorber mounts to the beam and the rear springs suffice. They sag, the extreme coil breaks off. Silent blocks of the front levers, depending on the operating conditions, go 100–150,000 kilometers. The steering uses a rack and pinion mechanism with a classic hydraulic power steering. The rail is quite reliable here and in most cases does not make itself felt 120–150,000 kilometers. But the service life of the boost pump largely depends on the purity of the working fluid. It is advisable to change it every 30,000 kilometers. Not often require attention and consumable steering. Chevrolet Aveo T300 brakes have a significant drawback: the rumble of front brake calipers brackets. This ailment is caused by an unsuccessful design, due to which the guide sleeves quickly breaks and the calipers begins to hang out. To solve the problem, a replacement of the bushings is required. The rubber bushings of the VAS 2101-2107 jet thrust is suitable. There is a description of the rapid processor of the specialized forums. The interior of the Chevrolet Aveo T300 is made of inexpensive finishing materials. They do not resist wear well. In addition, cheap plastic eventually begins to make extraneous sounds, which intensively in the cold season. Often the source of noise is the mechanism of the driver's seat, which begins to creak while driving over bumps. The instrument panel, which is one of the highlights of the model, in the dark bothers the driver with the constant flickering of huge speedometer numbers. There are also complaints about the reliability of salon equipment. So, for example, owners often blame the short service life of the heating elements for the front seats and exterior mirrors burn out 40–60,000 kilometers. Quite early the stove motor may make noise, after which it will have to be changed to a new one from 40SD for an analog. Often, the washers for adjusting the direction of airflow require attention, the cable jumps off. Another massive problem was the use of a defective ignition switch, due to which the internal combustion engine spontaneously started when the key was in the lock or the engine stopped while driving. Because of this ailment, a recall campaign was even carried out. The appearance of various glitches or malfunctions in the operation of electronics, as a rule, is caused by moisture on the connectors and contacts. Chevrolet Aveo T300, although it has a lot of childhood illnesses, is a good option for buying on the secondary market, since its cost is lower than that of competitors with the same set of equipment and level of reliability. The best option for purchasing are considered versions with mechanics that were released after 2014. If you are the owner of this car model, please describe the problems that you had to face during the operation of the car. Perhaps it is your review that will help readers of our site when choosing a car.